Trying to leave their troubled lives behind, twin brothers return to their hometown to start again, only to discover that a greater evil is waiting to welcome them back. Hey, what's going on, Flix Talkers? Welcome back to another video. This time, I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on the film Sinners, which is the newest Ryan Coogler film starring Michael B. Jordan and many more great actors. So before we get into it, please hit that big thumbs up if you guys do appreciate content like this and want to support the channel, and also consider subscribing today for more. Now, I'm going to leave some timestamp chapters below, guys, if you guys want to skip around ahead, because I will be talking about my movie experience, as this is the first film in 2025 I'm going to watch in theaters. I know it's surprising to a lot of people, but last year I had such a bad experience with movie theaters in general that I canceled my AMC A-list, and I was just not happy. I felt like I was just wasting more time with bad movies when I could have been focusing and utilizing my energy elsewhere. And I know a lot of you guys are going to disagree and say 2024 had some fantastic movies, and they did. It's just that they weren't coming out weekly, and I really wasn't just satisfied or really getting my fill of the full movie experience where I needed to go see it in theaters. So when we first started getting our initial trailers earlier this year for Sinners, the new Ryan Coogler film, I was intrigued, to say the least, that Ryan Coogler was actually going to be tackling a horror genre themed type of movie. He came from Creed, which is a boxing film franchise, and Black Panther and Wakanda Forever, which are two of my favorite Marvel movies in the whole MCU, to once again tackling something in the horror genre, vampire related. Now, for me, when it comes to horror, that is my ultimate go-to genre. I always have fun with horror, whether it's top elite or very thought-provoking A24 horror. It doesn't matter. B-list, Z-list here, I will be watching it. When I first started this channel, it was actually going to be a full-fledged horror channel only. But luckily, my love for cinema has expanded, so I can talk about all kinds of genres of movies here on the channel. And before you guys go into this movie, just know, it's not just a vampire horror movie. So I got to my local AMC opening night, Thursday night, premiere night, 7 p.m. showing in Dolby IMAX. And I was a little scared, a little hesitant, as once I walked in, I was only about 5 minutes before the movie. The theater was only about 15-20% full, and I was getting a little bit like, okay, what is going on with this one? I know horror is always going to be a niche thing, especially on premiere night. You really got to be into movies like this, or along for the actors or the directors. Something about the movie really has to pull you in once again on opening night, right? So once the trailers ended and the movie was about to start, I kind of like did my look around, and I saw that the theater was about now 50% full. Now let's dive into what Sinners is really about, because like I had mentioned just a moment ago, it's not a full-fledged horror movie, though it is about a lot of social commentary, especially in the early 1930s in the Deep South during Jim Crow, and we know for certain people it was not a fun time. It was a nightmare. It was a horror movie. Now, on a social commentary level, I expected it. I knew that this movie was going to be a vampire movie set during Jim Crow once again. So I knew I would hear certain language, but I needed to hear that language to make it more authentic. I also knew that I would have to see certain things like segregation or those picking cotton in the fields to once again get that authenticity. And I did. We got to see all of that. There's even a scene where it shows pregnant women working in the fields. I think when you're focusing on a movie that has dual themes or just a lot of things going on, especially a time period piece that's almost 100 years old, it really puts in perspective how far we've come, how we treat each other as a people, and still some of the similarities from back then that pertain to today. So just a heads up, guys, this movie is a slow burn, as about 2/3 of this movie is character development. We are building these two characters played by Michael B. Jordan, dual characters, by the way. They are twin brothers, Smoke and Stack, yeah, Smokestack, who are two war veterans now turned gangsters pretty much, that have obtained money in Chicago, and now they're going back down to the Deep South to spread that wealth around and open up their own juke joint, which is basically a bar. There is something to be said about bars like this, or juke clubs, as they are very community oriented, or in this time it seems like it's very black run, black owned, and black patrons only, as when white people come to the door, it's like, whoa, I think you're in the wrong place, buddy. Now, as we get this buildup of characters either hired to work at the new juke joint or just friends or old flings along the way, we start to hear whims of vampire and just demonistic dark nature stuff going on. There's a lot of religious undertones in this film, as it is explained in the opening monologue that demons and dark spirits and entities have existed since the dawn of time through all different cultures, and I love how it's actually displayed in kind of like an animation form, so the audience gets a quick glimpse of, okay, they've been here for such a long time, and even though we're not seeing that initially, we're gonna see it eventually. So once we're introduced to our nefarious characters, I started using my horror brain and just thinking, okay, okay, I know the rules of vampires. I know how they kill vampires. Some weapons do work in certain movies that don't work in other movies. I don't know why that happens. But in this movie, they use all the traditional things like garlic, a stake to the heart, silver, I believe they say. Even one of the main ways of storytelling that goes along with vampires is in this movie, and it's a huge plot point, and one of the reasons that our gang stays inside the juke joint once things go down. Now, before I get into our cast, let's talk about this action and gore. My God, I was actually really blown away because even though I did find out this movie is less than $100 million budget-wise, sometimes that can go all to the CGI department, so it kind of cuts cost a little bit. And yes, when push came to shove and there was a couple of close-ups of people getting shot or a couple of mouth and face wounds, I could notice, especially on the big IMAX screen, that it was being used by CGI. And though I don't really care for that, I really prefer practical, it didn't really distract me too much from the scene. I also like that they utilize a lot of good jump scares in this film, or even scares that you knew were coming and they just pop up and happen and you're still scared. Now, not much of a spoiler, but when some of the vampires start getting stabbed or stakes through the heart, there is kind of like this Shogun Quentin Tarantino like explosive blood that comes out of their chest. I know that's going to be distracting to some because a lot of you guys are used to realistic blood, and though we are dealing with realistic themes of social commentary, once again, I think that's the horror element he left in for us B horror movie fans, and once again, not distracting at all. All right, now let's get into our cast, starting with Miles Cadden as Sammy Moore. I believe this is this young man's first official debut movie, and oh my God, this kid was such a good character in this movie. We're introduced to him right at the beginning and all the way at the end. By the way, there is a post-credit scene or a mid-credit scene that you must stick around for, as it pretty much is the completion of this movie. It's not even a post-credit scene. It is a full-on like 5-6 minute scene. He is someone that comes from a family of worship, and he doesn't really want to follow that path. He kind of wants to go off and become this guitar star that he knows that his talents were given to him for. So once he gets the opportunity to play at this juke joint, which he is the cousins of Smokestack, he takes that opportunity, but once again, it's going to be a hell of a night. We have Delroy Lindo as Delta Slim. Now, Delroy Lindo needs no introduction at this point. If you have seen him, especially in his later career, I feel like this man has just upped his ante of just seasoned actor. He doesn't just clock in and clock out. You're still going to get a stellar performance once again from this experienced actor. Every moment that we spent with Delta Slim on screen was fantastic. Even to them just discovering or just showing him at the train station playing his harmonica, just them talking to him felt so authentic, so real. There's a moment where the audience just laughed where he talks about he just shit himself, and it's hilarious. And this man can hit on so many emotions. Delroy Lindo, I love you to death, bro. Haley Steinfeld as Mary, I thought was going to be a tough decision because she is still a young looking actress, at least. I don't really know how old she is, but she still looks very, very young amongst all these other actors that look a little bit older and possibly have a little more experience than her. But you know what? She held her own weight, and they do give her a good, lucid backstory. And I was actually appreciative of that because it did feel like she fit into this family, so to speak, when shit went down. Omar Benson Miller as Cornbread. I actually really, really like this character. I felt like he should have had more screen time, but he was kind of the muscle. He was the guy that was checking everybody at the door. And once again, when shit went down, he was very believable as a character. Wunmi Musako as Annie. Man, she was a great counterpart to, I'm just saying Michael B. Jordan because I forget if it was Smoke or Stack. She's someone that's romantically entangled with him, and it's beautifully conveyed on screen. Oh, there's also a sequence at the end where it felt like a Black Panther trance dreamlike sequence. I'm just going to say that. I don't want to spoil it, but I was like, this is Ryan Coogler, this is you, man. And she's also the one that kind of explains all of the rules on how to kill vampires. She knows about these evil spirits and she knows about all this stuff. Jack O'Connell as Remick. Now, this is the head, the leader of our vampire clan that we get, so to speak. And I thought he was a very believable, charming, and devilish character. Not only when he had his full fangs out, but when he was trying to convince people, just try to recruit them and just tell them how evil this world was. I believed everything from him. He was very, very convincing. And last but not least, Michael B. Jordan as Smoke and Stack. Now, when we first saw these two guys on screen, I know it's the same guy. I was looking at both of them back and forth because I know you have to film each part, right? In just different positions, different outfits, because one's wearing blue, one's wearing red. I thought was pretty funny because I automatically go to Bloods and Crips, but it did feel very real and very fluid. They're literally like passing cigarettes to each other, having conversations, looking directly in these people's eyes. So I would love to see a behind the scenes or something to see just how they technically did it, because it was done very well once again. And I gotta say, I think probably since Creed 3 with the rise of Jonathan Majors, I'm constantly comparing these two, Jonathan Majors and Michael B. Jordan, on an acting level, and I've just really swayed to Jonathan Majors' side as a better actor. Well, Flix Talkers, I tell you, this is hands down one of Michael B. Jordan's better performances, not just because he's taking on more responsibility in this dual role, but there's a lot of heartbreak, there's a lot of courage, there's a lot of overprotectiveness towards each other that is perfectly and beautifully conveyed when the shit goes down. And once again, I believe this character. I felt the emotion from this character. I actually felt like this guy was in 1932. Until at the end, he rips off his shirt and you get to see all his muscles and his six-pack, and I'm like, all right, I doubt guys had builds like this back in the 30s, but you know, that's shown for the ladies, I guess. And last but not least, because I don't want to make this review too long, guys, was the music, the score, the songs along the way. So this movie is very centered not only around religion and vampires, but also the music that accompanies it, because the music is a huge part of conjuring certain things, and that's all I'm going to say. There's a sequence in the Juke Club that visually catalogs Black and African music along the centuries that, you know what, if a lesser skilled director would have pulled off, I think it would have came off as corny. And there was a second where I was like, okay, is this not going to work, or is the audience going to laugh at this? But it actually came full circle around and it worked, and I really did enjoy it. It made me actually want to see this movie again. And not only music like the blues, but there's a lot of music outside of the bar, mainly being played by the vampires. That's kind of like this Celtic Irish music that was like, damn, it fit the scene as well.
For the summertime has come, and the trees are sweetly blooming, the wild mountain thyme.
So all in all, guys, as a movie lover, not just a horror movie lover, I think I'm going to give Sinners from 2025 a solid 5 out of 5. This picture, yes, was a slow burn, but once again, you have that buildup and that tension along the way to where you know you're going to get a great payoff. And I was so satisfied through and through. All right, Flix Talkers, are you going to see Sinners this weekend? Please let me know in the comments below. Are you guys waiting for streamers? Have you already seen it? And what did you guys think about it? Before you guys leave, please hit that big thumbs up. Consider subscribing today for more. I'll catch you guys in the next one. I'm gone. Peace.